I believe this shakeup in oil is huge for the US, but there is a bigger game being played here, and it will have a huge impact on your Tesla investment. So I'm going to lay it all out for you right now. Welcome back, everyone. In this video, we will cover what is going on with oil, how it affects Tesla in the short term, and how it will affect Tesla in the long term. And if you like making money from a normal guy who's not going to talk about rented girlfriends again because you guys just take it as something else completely altogether, go ahead and subscribe, hit that little notifications bell, and while you're down there, go ahead and give the video a like as well. I went on ahead and I scuttled my video that I had planned for today for this one. I actually posted some insight on Patreon yesterday about all this, but as I was studying to take advantage of this colossal collapse in oil, I ran across too many signs of something bigger going on. I believe this illness situation is the opportunity that OPEC and others have been waiting for. Now remember, this is just my opinion based on my research and some other things I am hearing and seeing. It's just for entertainment purposes only, and I'm an idiot as always. So what is going on with oil? We just saw and are continuing to see a colossal collapse in the price of oil. Why did this happen? Here are a few things for us to consider. The illness obviously has decimated demand. It's been covered to death already, so I'll just hit the highlights here. But planes aren't flying, people aren't driving, cruise ships aren't cruising, etc, etc, etc. There's lots of good videos out there on all this that give more detail, but you get the gist. The next reason is US oil companies continue pumping oil despite the downturn, to the tune of roughly 13 million barrels a day, which is about the same amount that they've been pumping out for over a year now. Does any other country continue producing and selling when demand crashes, and then agree to sell at a loss? No. Micron cuts back on chip production when demand falls, and they most certainly do not sell them at a massive loss, and that is how every other business in the world operates, but not the US oil producers. They continue to produce. Now, having said that, OPEC and Russia and others did the same exact thing, but remember their cost basis is much lower, and they're not debt burdened like the US oil companies are, and they're also state-run, not companies, so we're not really comparing apples to apples there. Essentially, OPEC, Russia, and a few others can sell at a loss and just wait everyone else out. In theory, when all the competition is gone, they can do as they please. So in the end, I do believe OPEC and Russia are trying to kill the US oil industry, or at least give it a little nudge as it approaches that giant cliff that they're headed towards. It costs the Saudis about $10 a barrel to make. They can actually get it out of the ground for as cheap as $2.80 a barrel. US companies need about a minimum of $23 a barrel to make money, and some as much as $40 a barrel to make money. And there are plenty of smaller countries out there who OPEC and Russia have been pushing around for years. Conversely, the US has been subtly pushing them around for years. But now they have the political cover with the, illness to push the US and others out of the main game. And let's be honest here, we are tossing trillions of dollars at this, and people are already not happy with how the big boys are benefiting so far, especially while the rest of us feel like we're being left out. So do you think it will play well to bail out big oil? Or for that matter, as this continues to falter, the big banks that have to suck up all their losses? Especially if what the average person sees is just lower gas prices at the pump? Which is more palatable? I don't think either plays well politically. And with this being an election year, I don't see politicians taking too controversial of a stance on this. But I do see them subscribing and liking my videos, so you should probably do the same. I don't want to copy politicians. I mean, like the video and subscribe, but don't copy politicians. Sorry. How does this affect Tesla in the short term? I believe this affects Tesla in both the short and the long term. But let's cover the short term first. And in the short term, I believe this hurts Tesla. Before you run to the comments, hang on. Let me explain why. Tesla was making moves with the Model 3 and Y to attract the average car buying customer. Look, most people cannot afford or do not want to afford $40,000 to $100,000 or more for a car. So the Model 3 and Model Y coming close to the $30,000 mark was huge in trying to make inroads with the biggest segment of car buyers who cannot afford the Model X or the Model S. With the base MSRP average rising in recent years to $29,000 and actual sales approaching almost $40,000, Tesla was close enough to that mark that buyers more than likely would probably consider paying a little bit more for a Tesla. This only works during good times when people stretch their budgets further for everything. From vacations to houses to even dining out. Everybody pushes a little further during the good times. Now with this downturn and all the uncertainty, it makes people just a bit more cost conscious, and they will more than likely look down from the average if they need a new car, not up. Obviously, if gas prices were higher, consumers would consider the what if gas prices get higher than this scenario, especially if they were paying $60, $80, $100, whatever it is at the pump every time they fill up with gas. But when oil is at zero and people are not driving much, if at all, I think this causes people to either just hang on to what they have or buy a cheaper gas car as they try to get through this downturn and, just delay their Tesla purchase until things go back to normal. And yes, like you guys, I've seen some ridiculous articles and videos about why you will eventually not have to pay for gas at all. That's just stupid on a lot of levels. In the end, they know there's a level we will comfortably pay and still think gas is so cheap. And no business does that long term ever. That's just stupid. Big picture though, I believe this hurts Tesla in the short term. With gas so cheap, it gives legacy automakers a bullet in the gun they previously didn't have. Now don't twist my words. Tesla is still going to fare far better than the legacy automakers during this downturn. It does not make it to where legacy automakers will do better than Tesla, but this does undercut a little bit of the advantage Tesla had coming into all this. Now let's look at this scenario long term. Long term, I believe the landscape will change significantly. Regardless of where you stand on this, there will be multiple bankruptcies and massive consolidation in the oil industry. It will allow OPEC and Russia to have complete control. Understand completely that we would still have political and military capital, but there would not be the additional pressure of the US oil industry. I do believe once all the players are out of the way, OPEC, Russia, and a few others will raise the price of oil. They already manipulate the prices right now. Eliminate all the other players and they have complete control. So I think prices will rise to meet whatever metric they want. And it really puts the US government in a tough spot. We could choose just to pump and use our own oil, but that uses up our reserves, and I think OPEC would play that against us. For example, how angry would you be if you knew gas was cheaper everywhere else in the world, but we can't get those prices because what is perceived to be, saving the fat cats at the oil company or the banks who finance them, or both, by requiring gas stations to only use US oil reserves. Remember, the cheapest we can produce at is $23 a barrel, maybe even $40 a barrel, depending upon where it's coming from, while the rest of the world can be getting it for as cheap as $10 per barrel. Which, by the way, the Saudis would still be making a profit at that lower price. I'm just not sure that would play well, especially if we were still in the midst of a recession. But how does this affect Tesla? Although I think legacy automakers will benefit in the short term, it is ultimately going to be their death knell in the long term. Remember, Ford and GM are in survival mode right now. So every decision is based on the short term, just trying to get to that next quarter and get out of this hole. Are they going to double down on EV tech during all this? Especially when the legacy model is where their profits are coming from right now? Especially with lower gas prices? Probably not, which will put them further behind Tesla, who is already outpacing them by leaps and bounds. Legacy autos have to shore up their balance sheet, and neglecting their big money maker for something that they have been unable to make great is not going to happen. And quite frankly, it doesn't make sense if gas prices are around $1 a gallon or so. That is the problem when you are not prepared and have a bad balance sheet. You are forced to bet on something that is more of a hope than a strategy. And in this case, that's oil prices staying low, which is a bad bet as we could be seeing a monopoly on oil from two entities that are not exactly our besties. Does anyone even say besties anymore? Sorry. Who wants to be tied to those two in regards to how much we pay for gas? Do you trust our government to properly implement us only using our gas reserves, or bailing out these big oil companies and the banks further? So even though in the short term this may take a little bit away from Tesla, long-term Tesla is going to be a huge winner, especially as these legacy autos will only be able to offer vehicles that require gas, which will inevitably go up in price due to it being controlled by so few or by the government. And Tesla will be right there with a great vehicle that doesn't require you to buy gas or be at the whims of OPEC, Russia, or government, or anybody else. So if you want even more information on that, click this video right here for more discussion on Tesla versus the legacy automakers. Thanks.